Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Bern Thompson Writers Group Poetry Reading. My name is Alyssa Borges and I am the curator of public programs here at the Juneau-Douglas City Museum. April is National Poetry Month, and to celebrate, we are hosting, I believe, 12 poets from the Bern Thompson Writer Group today, and who will all be reading original works, and some of them I think are newly created over the last year. The City Museum has hosted this group for many years, long before I even became a curator here. And it's always a pleasure to hear the poems each spring. For me, it's kind of a rite of passage into spring. And with the weather the way it is now, I'm hoping your poems just bring in some sunny weather and we can take a break from the snow. I was going to give just a little bit of background on Bern Thompson, but when I'm finished speaking, I'll pass it over to Mary Lou, who can elaborate on that a little bit more. So Bern Thompson, this writing group is named after Bern Thompson. She was a group member who moved to Juneau from Virginia in the 80s. And the way I understand it, she became involved in this writing group, and the writing group was not doing so well, a little bit flagging, and she just really had a lot of inspiration and skills that pumped it up, and it became a very robust group. And so when she passed away in 2013, the group chose to rename the group after her. So she leaves a legacy, which y'all have been writing ever since. So with that, a short introduction, I'm going to introduce Mary Lou Sparks, and each one of you, when it's your turn to read, feel free to say as much about yourself as you like.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, let's explain the Bern Thompson Writers Workshop has been around now since 2013. Huh?
After Bern.
Yes, and she was a tiny lady with considerable problems. She had some physical difficulties that could be categorized as disability, but they never stopped her. She never once complained. She just kept on going. She had three passions in her life. One was poetry, another was physics, and a third was her religion. She shared some of these passions with all of us, and we miss her very much. And we only wish that she could be here with us today. We meet, if you're interested, we meet every 2 weeks, twice a month. And ordinarily, that is to say during normal times, we've been meeting at the downtown library. We hope that one of these days we can do that again. Otherwise, we meet on Zoom, same times, and it's from 5 to 6:37. And you're all invited to join us if that is something you're interested in. I'd like to read a few poems to you of my creation. The first one came to me. I have a friend who comes to see me a couple of times a month, and her name is Amy. And this was a poem that she inspired. You said the next time you came, it will be spring. I'd see for myself, you said, as we stood at my window, looking down on a mountain ash, birthing new leaves on a pudgy tree limbs. It is a cold April sun that keeps warmth to herself. How did you know? The infant roadside waterfalls are beginning to track old stream beds, you said. Trickles are showing along the hillside, and it's your cabin. Eagles and crows are up early, chattering about thermals and where to find them. As my days pass, I want to believe this will not be my last spring. Your words brush the dust from my spirit, and cracks in my fears begin to heal in the comfort of your promise. There's another one about spring. It's called Spring Begins, ? It's apparent winter has no intention of leaving. I reach for my jacket like a 2-year-old, his blankie, reluctant to do more than zip out the extra liner. Sharp, gusty winds keep my cap covering my good ear from winter's kisses. Only arthritis is having a picnic. And this is called Daddy's Girl. She never did mind, even as a little girl. Willful, stick her tongue out if you crossed her. When it came to boys, well, what could he say? He called her cheap, sneaking out to live bums twice her age. Then he grew old, burned oatmeal in a cheap pot. Firemen told her she'd have to do something. They couldn't be running to his apartment to put out a mush pot. He had no choice. He had to ask. Could he move in with her? Did she mind? She didn't mind at all. This is called Night Terrors. During the daydreams that invade our night sleep, at bedtime, innocent as we are, we set the alarm, turn out the light, and believe night is not out to get us. Not true. As we woke in panic, shaken and breathing heavy, terrified by the horrid dreams we are thankful to be awake from, whatever it was that sent us plunging down a black hole into the arms of death's old friend, terror. I tell you how I spent my night dream, looking for you, asking strangers had they seen you. They stare at me, but don't speak. I walk that sidewalk in front of the apartment building we shared decades ago. I call your name. All I find is a wind-up toy you loved as a child and pieces of a shadow. I wake to the dreadful alarm, exhausted from the night, and a dull ache in my body that would not and asked me to brave the day. I am alone with you at my side. I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Margot.
Thank you. I moved to Juneau in the very early 1970s and began writing poetry in the 1990s, and totally appreciate having the writers group, which has been a source of a great deal of learning and inspiration for me. I've selected 4 poems to share with you that I've written this year. And I'll start with one called Early Humans May Have Hibernated, a headline in the newspaper. Scientists find a pit of bones telling a tale of early humans in brutal glacial ages. Dry skin, bones aching, stomachs empty, cold. They watched cave bears curl within chalky yellow rocks, close eyes, sleep in torpor, wake in spring. Quietly, they moved into bear's den, wrapped in animal skins, settled together, intertwined for warmth, slept away the long cold winters. Metabolism lower. Glacial ice advances and retreats. I know the truth of this, an inheritance lurking in genes. Short days, cold nights, I lie in bed well past the dim dawn, sleepy when solstice sun sets in mid-afternoon. Tired ache of bones, seeking comfort of quilts, store fat for sustenance. Ancestors call down a survival strategy no longer needed, even in northern winters at the foot of ice fields. My next one is called Daily Walk with Leo. Before I do it, it feels like a burden, a disruption, an unwelcome detour in the flow of the day's traffic. But I go from love of my dog, who relies on me. We go, he and I, despite sleet and icy paths or gauntlets of gnats. Best are bright May days, sky bluer as Earth's orbit rises, spring flowers, shooting stars, chocolate lilies, and lupin. Each walk, no matter the season or weather, is perfect. My dog and I have established our pace over the years, slow enough for his stops to smell what I cannot, but fast enough I do not have to wait too long. He keeps low to the ground. His stops invite me to share a view I would otherwise miss. Trampled grass of other walkers, bird feathers, remains of small animals. Sometimes I realize he lags behind and signal him to catch up. Then watch him race, ears pasted back to join me. Sometimes he does not come, knowing in his way that danger lies ahead and we must return. He and I accept his superior knowledge. Every day as we start out, my burden dissolves and becomes a walk with a dear friend into a world always new to the senses. My next one is Mother's Sewing Box. I have always known this tin box, now sitting on my shelf, a hand's length tall, oval lidded, 2 looping handles, once shiny black, now dull, decorated with stylized pink flowers and green leaves. Perhaps long ago a gift container for sweets or cookies. My mother kept this box at the ready, behind her dining room chair or next to the armchair where she rested in evenings, nearby for darning socks, fixing an open seam or small tear. As a child, I removed and sorted wooden spools of cotton threads for mending, embroidery floss for evening needlework, needles in paper sleeves, small metal scissors. Her filled box passed to me, a keepsake accompanying hemmed and embroidered napkins and childhood memories, now containing plastic spools of polyester threads, sewing machine tools, iron-on patches, fabric pieces, and needle threaders, useful for old hands and eyes. My last one is, I'm sure, one that resonates with many people. COVID vaccination number 2. The second vaccination came toward the end of winter, still dark in morning, brighter at noon, sun just above the mountains, lightening those outdoor places where we escape. The second vaccination came with first glimpses of spring, the lunar new year of the iron ox, diligent and persistent as we have been. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So now we have Hallie.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Hallie Denton, and I moved to Juneau in 1968 as a teenager, kicking and screaming, determined to leave the second I could, but time passed and I'm still here. Juneau's changed quite a bit. This first poem is from the old days, and this last summer reminded me a lot of Juneau before the cruise ships. So this poem, which I wrote, probably the first one I ever brought to the writers group. It's been on my mind a lot this year. It's called Ghosts. This little town, ever changing, is full of ghosts and images of long vanished people and places. They shimmer under streetlights along the rain-washed pavements. They waver in the blowing snow and glow faintly against the dark spruce in the long summer twilight. There he goes, old army jacket, sandals, and black dog. Here she stands, gray hair, gray coat, red rubber boots, and bright flowered scarf. By the old high school he waits, blonde and lanky, black framed glasses, cigarette, and smart-ass grin. To live in this place is to live with loss. People come and then they go, lured by beauty and adventure, driven away by cold and dark, depression and isolation, drawn away by love or opportunity. There are those who remain, who love this place, but even they are finally claimed by age or by calamity. The buildings come and go as well. They burn, they rot, are torn down, repurposed or rebuilt, but their shades remain. The seedy joints where we danced and drank and laughed our nights away, are tourist shops and galleries. That shabby old frame building, scene of my first heartbreak, now an office parking lot. The forests we roamed through, sprawls of streets and houses. And the people who once lived here wander in the places that we knew. Tireless shadows of what was. Only the winter stars, the mountains, and the weeping clouds remain constant, but we are all ghosts and remnants after all. The onion skin layers of our many lives folded and stitched, crumpled and torn and pasted back together. We drift through this little town, afloat like fallen leaves on the puddles and streams of rainwater memory. And I really didn't do many spring poems, but I do, here's almost a spring poem. This is called Springing Forward. Waking to the hush of another March snowfall, the still whiteness is almost more than I can bear. I have set the clocks ahead. Some say it is about daylight, but I am attempting to hurry spring. I yearn for the first faint hints of green, the fattening buds of lilac, stiff fingers of crocus and daffodils thrusting into the light, the first touch of warmth in the sheltered sunny spots. Over my coffee in the newly late dawn, the sun clearing mountains behind my house, I hear, woven into croaking ravens and mewling gulls, a small thread of song, the tiniest omen of the northern spring, a bold song sparrow arriving early to claim his territory like a hardy sourdough staking out hopes of gold. And okay, I have one called Extinction. As a child, in my dinosaur phase, I could rattle off the names: Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Brontosaurus, Pterodactyl, Tyrannosaurus Rex. I thought I might become a paleontologist until I realized that I dislike heat and dust, stooping and digging. Then I dabbled in astronomy, learning the names of planets and their companion moons. Titan, Phobos, Enceladus, Europa. But now the Brontosaurus has vanished, twice extinct, trailing after poor demoted Pluto, planet no more, even though it too boasts a companion moon. The dinosaurs have morphed into chickens and herons and even robins. And I have become a dinosaur in my turn. And here's my last poem. This is called Stormy February Thoughts, not about spring. February, month of smug couples, lonely hearts, dead presidents, and mattress sales. Winter has tightened its grip, even as days lengthen. I wait out the season in a house buffeted by blasts of frigid wind, racing from Canada through the narrow mountain gaps, eager to fill the low-pressure void over the Gulf of Alaska. This is the reality of life in a convergence zone. The struggle toward equilibrium breaks branches, flings uprooted trees onto power lines, sends avalanches roaring, wears on my already stretched nerves. Outside, the low sun turns windblown snow into handfuls of flung glitter. That's it for me. Thank you.
Holly. Next up, we have Marjorie Menzie. Where are you? There we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Marjorie Menzie. I've spent most of my adult life in Juneau, where I raised my 5 children and 2 stepchildren, who are sometimes the subject of my poems. I've been a member of the Thompson Writers Group for about 6 years, although I have often been absent from meetings while my husband and I were completing a circumnavigation in our sailboat. Tonight I'm reading 2 short poems. And the first one was inspired by the pandemic, if you want to say inspired. Drama in the Aquarium. Who thought that a pandemic quarantine would turn my attention to the fish, which have been part of our lives for years? As their primary caregiver with daily multiple feedings, I am a regular at their tank. I think they know me as I approach their home with food. My favorite, Angel, the lone, large, beautiful, docile angelfish. I discover with renewed attention to the domestic life within the tank, Angel is being harassed. I had not known that with each feeding, her companions attacked her, monopolizing the colorful tropical flakes I spread in the tank. I moved to solve the problem, luring her companions to food scattered on the opposite side of the tank from where Angel hangs, then giving Angel flakes where she floats. It works for 2 short weeks. Now the gang of fish never leave Angel's side. They do not seek out food I pour for them away from the frightened fish. Instead, they stay with Angel, darting, tormenting, intimidating until I feed them there. I'm being outsmarted by some fish. The dilemma persists. The next is in honor of National Haiku Poetry Day, which is April 17th each year. And you can probably appreciate this because the weather that we're having here in Juneau is still winter. Hardy daffodils, surviving cold, wind, and snow, garden's staunch soldiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Next we have Dan.
Thank you. I wanted to make a pitch before we started about 49 writers. Get this thing to do behave itself. Here we are. I am thankful for getting a chance to read poetry this afternoon, but since April is Poetry Month, the 49 Writers website will be featuring a poem a day. Just go to the website, place your pointer on the word blog in the top left portion of the page, and then click on 49 Writers blog to read the poem of the day. A Sarah Itzo poem was posted on the 4th of this month. Margot Waring's will appear on April 21st. I believe you can read all the poems like Sarah's, even if they're posted earlier in the month. This week, I've been working with Michael Burnwell, the editor of Cirque, on preparing my memoir for publication. It starts in 1976 when I moved from Bethel to Bethel from California, and shares essays about my time in 12 and a half years on the Kuskokwim River, 5 more in Ketchikan, and more than 30 here in Juneau. During the editing process, I found some journal pages jammed into an informal chapbook, but got sucked into spending too much time on the chapbook. Now you folks are stuck listening to some of the poems that I wrote about Ketchikan during the 1990s. The first one is called I in the Village. Hillside homes of this fishing town show their good side to the fleet. Deckhands drunk on too much freedom roar and piss in downtown alleys until the police move them along. At closing time, they stagger across Tongass Avenue to hunt for bunks in a maze of rafted up seiners. Beneath the sea captains' houses of Upper Water Street, break-time cannery workers glisten in slime and salmon scales. Their lame pickup lines reach across 2 lanes of traffic without raising a smile. 2. The midsummer cruise crowds keep locals off downtown sidewalks. Lovers do emerge on sunny evenings to walk past shuttered tour ship booths and the good news singers calling out for converts at the corner of Dock and Front. 3. Things quiet down in September, the magical time between tourists and tempests. Kids fish from the Stedman Street Bridge while the odor of dying humpies floats into Lillian's bookstore and the 5-star. No one sweats the smell. October rains will flush all things clean. This next poem was written on October 12th, 1994, the day that a friend of mine, Nick Morris, died. Nick was 100 years old at the time. He was a really interesting native guy that arrived in Alaska on a fishing boat in 1917 and stayed here until he died in 94. Dear Nick, we never really talked, just filled blank spaces with stories. You had so many triggered by casual references to unimportant things. Now there are no more words, just my mumbled prayers mixed with road noise and wind. It gets worse each night. I test the weather before entering the home, wondering if you pick storm or sun for final venue. Tonight it storms. You watch the ceiling, eyelids startling open wide. I want visions, a white light, angels, devils, the whole judgment fresco. Then you reach for my hand. I know it is just pain dulled by medication. When the stormlight leaves us in dusk, I run my Catholic chants. You make me understand the rosary. Finishing the last Hail Mary, we spend more minutes on the business of dying, enterprise best done with the living. Then I say goodbye. My only words to you, wondering if tonight they are true. And the last poem, which is really short, is about a woman I've been married to for a long time and fallen in love with in 1957. 67. Dear Susan, you write me love poems every day that have no words. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Our next poet is Helena.
Hi. Well, I'm Helena Fagan and probably one of the newer members of this group. I've only been in it 2 or 3 years, but I love it. And I just want to share that my life, especially this year, holds such a mixture of loss and grief, along with hope and gratitude, always gratitude, and a lot of joyful beginnings as well. And I'm sure many of you have had such a mix this year in your own lives. But I've learned, and I'm learning every day, that I can try to hold all of it simultaneously. So I just wanted to share a sampling of some of where I've been this year and one poem that's a little bit older. So the first one, it's being published this month in the Cirque magazine. And I just want to tell you that there's a language in there that you might not know. Shevra Kadisha means it's the society that prepares Jewish bodies for burial. And the title of the poem is Zoom Burial. We waited an extra hour while the Shevra Kadisha, 2 women short of the usual 4, vigilantly prepared you. We waited while they wrapped you, my sister, in a white shroud with no pocket, all wealth left behind as you returned to the earth. I witnessed from my sofa, and though I could not see your coffin already resting in your grave, knew the plain pine, no nails, no embellishment, no pallbearers, no measured walk from the chapel, only 10 bandits and the bandit rabbi at the grave, masks, gloves, hats, making it hard to tell my nieces apart. The virus prescribed the rules, demanded each family bring their own shovel, no passing from hand to hand for your ritual last tucking in. We watched your husband crumple, fold toward the earth, his shovel falter, shards from his heart shattering mine. We heard the rabbi console and pray, and then whiskey, your favorite, the entire bottle poured by your daughter onto the fresh dirt, conjuring your jubilant party girl self. We saw our beloved lilacs tossed after the whiskey, surely invoking, for those of us who had traveled to Poland, the armful I carried into Auschwitz. We chanted, finally, the Kaddish, lips moving in frame after frame of Zoom companions with muted mics. Then Julie waved into the camera, announced, I guess this is it. And the second one just came out in the new Title Echoes magazine this year. It's titled 5 Days Before the Election. Scrolling through posts, obsessed and frozen, scrolling, as if this is not a waste of time, a diversion that creates misery. Then my mother appears on my screen, a post from the Oregon Jewish Museum of her final Holocaust survivor speech, telling high school students, I want you to have a happier life than you think you can have, and I want you to vote. I cannot stop playing this 46-second clip over and over until my ice jam ruptures as if she just died and all my sorrow for all the world surges in waves and rivulets, floating me back to the day before she gave that talk, the day we said goodbye and I flew home, suspecting I would never see her again. Seeing her now on my feed, the messy hair that near blindness kept her from taming, her deep voice missing its strength, her shaking hand gripping the mic, her sheer exertion, now garnering thumbs up and hearts. I wish I hadn't voted by mail. I wish I could go to the polls. To hell with COVID, stand masked and fearless and vote for both of us. And the last one is from a couple of years ago. It was published in the Northwest Squid magazine, which is the Oregon coast area. It's a really lovely magazine if you ever get a chance to look at it. And this poem actually won the poetry prize when they did it for the first time from Manzanita. And this is my gratitude poem. I end with some gratitude, and the title is Embrace. The flat rocks of Jones Creek, that summer I carried you, collected the heat, and I, like a snake with a mouse in its belly, drew the warmth into my aching body. Intoxicated with creek song and solitude, the afternoons rich in breezes and anticipation, my impatience cooled by green water and the breath of alders and birch. I know now that those moments held all the grace of our lives, the joys, the losses to come, the moving together and apart through our seasons. And if I were to do it over, there is nothing to change. Now, as old age shrugs its shoulders, because really there is no surprise here, those moments when our heartbeats merged with heat and water and earth still speak to me of perfection, still offer shelter and hold me as I once held you, in my cells, in my womb, in my arms. Thanks.
Thank you, Helena. Next up is Beatrice.
Hello, hello, everybody. Are you ready? Thank you, Alyssa.
I'm trying to spotlight you.
That's okay.
Here
We
we
can
go.
leave you. Hi.
There we
Thanks, Alyssa. My name is Beatrice Franklin. This is my 48th year in Juneau. Hard to believe. I worked for many years at the Egan Library. And after a while, I started taking some wonderful creative writing classes there. Poetry was an easier place to start writing because I had not been writing for my whole life. I do enjoy playing with words, seeing what places they take you. Nature is often a starting point for me, memories from childhood, difficult times, and particularly in this period of the pandemic, letting my imagination play has certainly been helpful for me, and I think my fellow poets here. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Time Out, and this was written early pandemic. Between branch whipping gusts and snow-laced rain, I snatched some walk time. Walking forests imperative these virus-drenched days, saturated with sedentary hours, lacking exclamation points. Two-step time that cramps limbs, concentration, and restricts breath, even when I'm not masked. Today, most days, I console myself with birdsong, insistent, irrepressible, inscrutable, sufficient companionship. The second poem that I wrote probably about a year ago is called Fog. Out my window, dense fog hides Shelter Island, highlights hemlock branches bending near, holding their acrobatic poses. A wash of mesh drops offers canvas for my thoughts, soothing space, opaquely mysterious, imparting intimacy almost as palpable as human touch. I imagine a seagull floating in feathered invisibility, herring reprieved from eagle eyes, a bed of kelp once nurtured on seafloor, a relaxed merganser freeing her chicks from tight formation. I remember a fog that once smothered our sea ray in a narrow strait. We, novice boaters who drifted, sounded horn at intervals, held breath, bit hard on fear, conjuring Godzilla rock that would loom and crush us before we could reach our new home in Juneau. We had moved ourselves up in our boat. This third poem is about eating king crab. It's called Gluttony. I stand over the kitchen sink, snapping king crab legs, pulling out sweet body, too impatient to dig out recipe or mound meat. I play the lioness clamped on her impala carcass, her red-stained jaws in ferocious grimace of delight. Like hers, my gullet tingles with pleasure. Instead of hungry cubs waiting obediently, my cat Alice meows incensed, seizing bits of crab that rain on her fur floor with abandon. She faithfully credits me for feast instead of a friend who folded the crab, hoisted 400 feet from deep into my red bucket. Wishing me bon appetit and empathy, I no longer had a mate, a boat to harvest the sea. And this fourth poem I wrote, I think last week, it's called When You're Out of Paper. If I wrote a poem on an elephant's back, its syllables would undulate like Sahara sand. If I wrote a poem on my cat's nose, its vowels would swell like a sponge holding tears. If I wrote a poem on a giraffe's neck, its sound would skim the acacias like geese greeting sunset. If I wrote a poem on a tortoise's shell, its story would reveal slowly like shelled peas falling into your lap. If I wrote a poem on a raven's beak, its weave would only fray if the bird hopped into rush hour. If I wrote a poem on a rabbit's ear, its pace would quicken at sound of owl wing beat. If I wrote a poem on a moth beating at my window, its last line would honor the effort to find light. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beatrice, next up is Sarah.
Well, good afternoon. As some of you know, I've lived in Juneau for 40 years, but I was raised in interior Alaska, and I still have an attachment to it. My husband and I own a cabin, a remote cabin in the Kantishna Hills, and we try to go there at least twice a year during the fall equinox and the spring equinox, which are usually delightful months. So I'm going to read two poems, both written from the cabin. One is in fall and one is in spring. Both of these have been published by Cirque in the past. Crossing the Yukon Flats. This is the fall poem. 3 of us and our gear, all the small plane can handle on this deep sky autumn day. Below us, the Yukon Flats patched with orange aspen, russet bushes, the black of an old burn, and everywhere the glint of water. Shallow riverlets incise the barely sloping land, sinuous curves and oxbow sloughs entwined to glide toward the great river flowing over the horizon toward the sea. Mesmerized by engine vibration, foreheaded, braced on the plexiglass window, I scan the passing mosaic for moose or beaver dams or ponds with floating swans. Then I see the shadow of our plane cutting due east, its straight business pale gray, barely touching the tangled, fecund inefficiency of patterned land below. And the spring poem is a tribute to some birds who are among the first to nest, usually when the snow is still there. Parasaurus canadensis, gray jay, common name, camp robber. Mid-March, snow drifts glaze and crumble in the sun, birch sap rises into still bleak twigs, and the gray jays on the porch rail are courting. He tucks his wings snug to his body, flexes his back-bending knees, and springs, arcing over her head, then back, right, left, right. She turns coquette, squats, fluffs her down, and flutters her wings in imitation of her once nestling self. Then she turns to face him and opens wide her mouth. He delicately drops in the last scrap of pancake placed for them on the railing. She babies up to him again and begs for more, her open beak a deep diamond. He hops and dithers, then abruptly turns and flies straight at our window, thudding it with chest and beak, demanding another delicacy to impress his love. But I will not be drawn into their affair. There is no need. Already yesterday, I watched the two of them swipe wisps of pink insulation from our log chinking and carry them away across the creek and in deep into the branches of an old spruce tree atop our south-facing hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We have Diane up next.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending our poetry reading. Well, I have lived in Juneau for 44 years and have been a member of the Thompson writing group for the last 8. I would sum up my poetry writing as a search for meaning, an expression of gratitude and longing. All of these elements have played into my writing over this past year, a year that has saddened, challenged, and ultimately strengthened all of us. I'll be sharing 3 poems that I have written during this past year. My newest grandchild, Silas, was born February 20th, 2020, just weeks before all of our lives changed dramatically. The ache of not being able to be with Silas in person made this pandemic painfully real. I was moved to write this poem. The last time I held you. Your tender body pressed close to my proud grandma heart. Perfect crown, soft as down, eyelids drawn in newborn sleep. All the while, the invisible threat traveled on unwashed hands and exhaled breath to every city, every town. Now I pine for FaceTime sightings, skinny limbs becoming fat, tiny fingers finding sister's face. The last time I held you, we knew nothing of separation, sheltering at home, that I would become a stranger hidden behind a mask. The last time I held you, the world was just a backdrop for our moment. My pulse matching yours, your breath easing mine. One of my pandemic habits has been to walk my neighborhood daily if possible. The fresh air and exercise lifts my spirits, and from a safe distance, I can wave to neighbors and carry on conversation across the street. The sight of children playing has reminded me of resilience. This next poem is thanks to the children. Kids on the trampoline. Spied from my window through a screen of trees, bright forms become airborne. Children's voices hoot and laugh. In these days of sheltering in, I've seen them at all hours. Blonde hair flying, stifled spirits catching air. On my daily pilgrimage around the neighborhood, wrapped in warm jacket and pandemic worries, I look for the lightly clad bodies launching into chilly spring, the weightlessness of youth, assurance of a safe landing. On one of my walks around the neighborhood, I met a young man, a high school student, who had set up a forge and metalworking workshop in his garage, from which he fashioned stunning knives, hooks for hanging things, and other useful metal implements. He is a highly skilled artisan. I was able to watch him at work one day as he began to craft a sword. This next poem is in honor of Liam Penn and all the people who defy hard times with creativity and bring light into darkness. Master of the Forge. Propane fire blasts intense heat into frosty air. A youth extends tongs into the forge, withdraws glowing bar of scrap metal, steadies it on the anvil. Excitement tightens his grip, frees him from quarantine lethargy, tedium of high school online. He smites scorching steel, orange sparks flying. Sureness of impact, fist to shoulder, clash of metal against metal, subdues uncertainty of when he will see his friends, if things will ever be normal. Days follow with repeated heat and rotation, practice blows achieving symmetry. Filings scatter from the grinding wheel that thins and refines his sword. The ordinary, transformed, bleak winter meets the sting of his blade. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Diane. And next up is Kathy.
Hi, thanks, Alyssa. I'm Kathy Hamblet and have lived in Juneau for several decades. New to the Thompson writing group to the point that I've never met these other poets face to face, only on Zoom. I look forward to the day that we can meet again. So all of my poems are new this year, and I will start with a winter poem since it seems to be ongoing, titled The Winter Poet. As snow drifts cover gardens and railing, the winter poet sips tea, gazing at bare branches of the cherry tree. In the hush of the winter morning, the sizzle of wood burning in the stove warms the silence. On the slightest breeze, the snowflakes swirl and dance, with every wind and whim entirely unbound, like the flighty thoughts of the winter poet who at once imagines a bear snuggled into a snow blanket under every mound and contemplates how clumps of snow cling to the rhododendron, big lumps bending branches to the ground. Some will break, the winter poet knows this. Words amass like snow from flakes to massive drifts, and with a pen, the poet captures a flurried thought, gathers flakes onto paper, and shovels the words across the pages into shapes more useful. Some will melt. The winter poet knows this. Ideas fall unbidden like new snow from that place of mystery, and with a pause, the poet considers the source of thought and studies the snow-laden clouds, ever watchful. My next one is about an appliance, Ode to a Kenmore. The new refrigerator arrived, all shiny stainless steel, standing in place of you, the small white one, stalwart for 35 years. You, a Kenmore, trusted. My children's hands from toddler through teen years, tugging your doors, finding sustenance. Tourist magnets of beaches and foreign lands, crayon drawings and family photos, and time marching across your face. Will the shiny intruder with a commanding presence shoulder half your load or be swept aside as planned, designed obsolescence? I blurt, it's a behemoth. as the beast rumbles awake. My husband's accusing finger points to you, now silent, no louder than that one. But I know her voice I offer. Her sounds are a purr of comfort. And I silently swear you'll have a new home to serve. I also have a pandemic poem titled Our Indefinite Grip. We eat our greens and floss our teeth and plan to get 8 hours of sleep, for we know the grass withers and the flower fades, but only after their requisite days. With our 6 and more decades of learning how and what to praise, we know life is way too precious to let COVID bury us. To be claimed by a virus is insane. This damn pandemic, we'd like to forget it, but when asked to mask it, we chime, we're on it, because life, we want it. Each allotted drop and drink. Can we hold on to it? Our indefinite grip will loosen when God calls us. Until then, we're tenacious. Each dawn an enduring gift as sparrows flit and not fall among snow-laden branches. A special providence, a holy inheritance, forever lifts their wings to fly. And above it all, the eagle wheels long, lazy loops in a perfect sky. And finally, a poem about a visit from a grown daughter called Rearranged. You're grown and back home with your new husband in tow. Why should it surprise me? You want to rearrange the furniture. From your first cry, you rearranged my life with an intensity I could not foresee. I answered yes to the seismic shift of the ground under my feet, tectonic plates colliding. I answered yes to seeing the world anew, from rock below to star above, my vision of space and time expanding. I answered yes, knowing it would end, and the plates drifted apart again. You left like a passing storm, leaving me the sole beachcomber among the flotsam and jetsam. Sadder, but not surprised then. Yes, move the couch and the piano too. When you leave again, it will remind me of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy. Linda is next.
Linda Buckley. Yeah, lived in Alaska a long, long time. And I come to poetry as a songwriter. And this is actually Folk Festival week. So for many, many folk festivals, I've written original songs. And this year, they're doing it all virtually, and I'm not doing a song, but some of the poems I've written, certainly, and especially during the pandemic, people have said would lend themselves to a song. So the ones that I have chosen are pretty much about rain, even though it's snowing, another form of rain. The first one is called It's Just Rain. Spruce and hemlock soak up saturated air. A dog barks into the gray dawn. Sea and sky merge into a slush of nondescript haze which blurs heaven and earth. Just as I begin to drown in the depression of another rainy day, poetry throws me a lifeline. Okay. And the next one is called The Sound of Rain. What is the sound of rain on new spring leaves, descending from clouds to hemlocks, then sifting down to false hellebore, blueberry branches, lupin, lusting for diamond wetness, landing on buttercups, violets, marsh marigolds, iris, chocolate lilies, shooting stars, sedges, grasses, and nagoon berries, and more, so much more. What is the sound of rain on new spring leaves? Whatever it is, the birds sing melodies and descants, librettos and arias. The soft staccato droplets, a mere backbeat to kingfishers, eagles, geese, kinglets, sparrows, robins, varied thrush, woodpeckers, and more, so many more, flitting and flying, warbling and nesting, throwing back their feathered heads in wild abandon. What is the sound of rain on new spring leaves? Step outside and discover for yourself, but you must be very quiet. Even the pounding of your heart might startle the stillness. And let's see. Oh yeah, a sequel to that. Well, this is called For the Birds. I'm sure it has something to do with rain though, eventually. Stepping into the new day, saturated from weeks of rain, I stop and listen, scan the meadow. Silently, the huntress glides over last year's ryegrass, swoops past spruce and banks in my direction. I feel the stillness hours of meditation has given me. 2 meters from my face, she gives me a hard look. Her white face and yellow eyes turn on her owl axes as her body and wings continue the hunt. She is my messenger. I've come to see Canadian geese, great blue herons, and perhaps a migrating swan. In that moment of awe when the mind whispers, owl, I waken to the music all around me. The forest is full of singing. Big birds like geese, heron, and swan, though graceful and impressive, honk, quark, and whistle. The wee tiny ones hidden in brush and branches tease with their lilting, tintillating tunes. I stand very still, and then I see them everywhere. Ruby-crowned kinglets, warblers, sparrows, juncos, robins, jays, varied thrush, and red-breasted woodpeckers. In the midst of torrential rain, they sing and sing and sing, throwing back their heads, their little necks wobble with all those notes. And finally, snow geese. In early May, migrating snow geese and trumpeter swans share meadows with resident Canadian geese. The swans have moved on. A new gaggle of snow geese, maybe 50 in all, has just landed. I walk wide past their feeding area over a knoll and onto the beach. On a beached hunk of driftwood, I rest my head. My body sinks into the warm sand. I scooch down, pushing pokey shells and pointy rocks to the side. Hours later, feeling the light change and tides rise, I shift myself to standing. Taking one last look at the mountains, sea, and circling gulls, I begin to head home. Stepping up a small incline to the meadow, I hear a faint sound overhead. All 50 snow geese just feet from my face glide past. Have you ever heard the sound of 100 wings pulsing the air? There's a gust of wind, a puff of feathers, a collective sigh, and a whoosh of white, and then they're gone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And now our final reader today is Richard.
Well, my favorite bio has been that Richard writes about nature, which he loves, and aging, which he's doing. But actually the 3 poems I'll read today don't quite fit any of those categories. The first is sort of inspired by Margot and her activism in regard to climate change. It's entitled Cause and Effect. Belugas no longer visit, he laments, and the sea ice thins earlier every year. His house sinks as permafrost no longer is. Seabirds wash up on the beach as their prey migrate to cooler waters. I must take my four-wheeler further to find caribou, and gas gets ever more expensive, he says, as he adjusts his ExxonMobil cap. And that was published in Capital City Weekly in May of 2020. The second one is titled Quacks. The mallards tip up and down in the lake's shallows. They waddle and squat on the mud flats. They quack with the classic quack you told your children was the sound ducks make. Quack, quack, quack. The TV blurts bad news, displays curves showing COVID-19 spreading across the country. Talking heads and grave-looking doctors in white coats lament the lack of testing, shortages of masks, gowns, ventilators, ICU beds. The president is talking to the press. Who would have guessed that healthcare was complicated? I'm a smart guy. I feel good about my hunches. I'm usually right. That my grandfather was a doctor may explain why I know so much. Just wait. The invisible enemy from China will just disappear. Quack, quack, quack. And finally, this was inspired by the big storm we had back in December. I guess this counts as nature. Forecasters call the assault atmospheric rivers of rain. Torrents pour from gray skies, from melting alpine snowpacks. The slope behind my house wakes in anger, shudders and shakes like a wet dog. Water and mud roar down every wrinkle. Root wads of wind-toppled hemlocks tear stream sides. Sediments clog channels. Boulders laid by glaciers roll and slide. In early morning darkness, I listen to the roar of water rushing through the house-side culvert. Remember when another angry stream jumped the banks, slammed the house, filled our basement with soupy mud. A massive mudslide down the block shaves off a deck and sluices logs, debris, and a trailered boat downhill. A stream gobbles hunks of my neighbor's yard. 90 miles to the north, a slide takes 6 houses and 2 lives. The frontal assault ends, but the sun still hides in gray gauze. The surface of the lake in front of our house is placid, but the mocha color tells a tale of mud. Water still hurries over freshly exposed rocks as I walk upslope to check on lurking dangers. I have the uneasy feeling I'm tiptoeing across a sodden beast that may any minute try to shake itself dry. Thank you. And on behalf of the Burn Thompson writers, we want to thank you, Elissa, and the City Museum for allowing this. This has turned into a really nice annual event, and we appreciate it.
Just as closing, if anybody wanted to share any advice you might have for hesitant writers or people new to writing or budding poets that want to get started, if there's any words of advice you might give them.
You know, just be brave, be brave, be brave. Trust, you know, don't try to hit a home run every time or every other time. Just trust that everybody has a voice and writes in a different way or expresses themselves differently. So if you feel the urge, act on it. Don't sell yourself short.
Exactly what Beatrice said.
Ditto, right?
Yeah, be brave and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say join this group because it's an inspiration to be part of it and to read everybody's poems twice a month.
How many are there in your group? There's 12 here tonight. Are there more members?
There's probably 20 on the email list. Sarah might want to correct me if that's wrong, but I think it's about 20. And it has been that we have had more, people do come and go, and we have several that are not here tonight that have been quite active, and I regret that they're not here.
Well, what was really special about tonight, and is true for all of your readings, is the variety of poems that you read tonight, expressing such a wide range of experiences. And it just, when it comes together, it's just this rich tapestry of human experience, which is delightful to hear. So I want to thank all of you for continuing to write and being willing to come on Zoom this time around. Hopefully next time we'll be back in person and we can share refreshments and be in the museum together.
We are all looking forward to that, Alyssa. And in the meantime, we thank you and the City Museum for hosting us either in person or virtually. It's been a long-term partnership that we value a great deal. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.